I'm Edward Warfield, the publisher of City Biz, and I'm honored today to interview Matt Hanna, who's the CEO of Next One Up. Welcome, Matt.
Thanks, Edwin. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here with you.
Can you provide an introduction to Next One Up and its mission?
Sure. Very simply put, Next One Up is a long-term mentor program. We engage young men in Baltimore City in 6th and 7th grade. We stay with them for a very long period of time to really cover all the different challenges young people face in getting into high school, college, or career, and then life beyond college. And I think, has been the hallmark for Next One Up. This long-term engagement has been a really common theme that we've developed over time of developing young men for the long term.
And Next One Up was started 13 years ago. So, what have been some of the major milestones up to you've got a major milestone that you're about to announce this week, but walk us through some of the major milestones that you have done over that period of time.
Sure. It's in 13 years. It's looking back on some major milestones for us. Very simply, is the growth of the program. We started the program. I did as a young teacher in Baltimore in 2009 with 5 great young men, where I was just challenged to think, what are you going to do this summer? I always ask that question of how will you keep busy when school is out? And so, a couple camp scholarships in 2009, and now those young men are almost 30 years old, and 13 years later. Just the growth of the program, well over 150 young men that we currently serve and growing. And then also those milestones of space. For us, I started it at Patterson Park at a basketball court. Now we're looking 13 years later at a 14,000 square foot facility that's, a multi-million-dollar campaign. I'd always had that in my sights, but I knew it was going to take time. And I think those milestones that are in the mix here are, everything from our first student to attend and graduate from college, or our first guy to join a trade. And there's so many to name, but I just think the success stories of some young men that came from challenging environments with some major roadblocks, all these pathways that we've created and worked with young men on going down have really made me proud. So there's a lot to cheer for. But I also feel like, Edwin, I'm, with milestones, I just don't look back. I don't celebrate as much as I should because I'm not done yet.
And can you provide a snapshot of Next One Up today in terms of some data points?
Sure. We're serving over 150 young men. We've grown from a summer camp scholarship program to a year-round program of mentoring, advisement, and academic intervention. Our guys come to our program every Sunday, 30 Sundays a year, and then 5 weeks in the summer. But the biggest jump for us in the next year with our own facility, we'll be going from 1 day a week of really intense programming. You picture these young men that come to the program commit an extra day of school. So 6 days a week, they're in school if you're a Next One Up program member. Next year, that's going to be available to them after school on the weekends. So I just think the depth of programming is going to change immensely and move these young men forward even further.
So you have some major news coming up that you're about to announce later this month. You have some new programming space in Belvedere. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it was, for 4 or 5 years now, we've been on the search for what our future home could be. And obviously there's 2 big conversations, maybe 3, location being important. We have students that come from over 40 different schools. We needed to be centrally located. But the other obviously was, a funding standpoint, are we ready to raise this money? Then the other piece is, do we have the staff and the capacity to deliver? Last summer, I was over at our summer program at Gilman. I got a call from a friend, John Manikin, who's in the real estate world, and said, "Hey, I think I found something." And over the years, he would always keep in touch with me once or twice a year, say, "Hey, come look at this property." And I'd kick around and say, it needs too much work, or it's too far off the beaten path. Certain guys couldn't get to it. And all of a sudden, he called me about a property that everybody knows. It was the old brick bodies at Belvedere Square. And I thought it can't be this place. And hey, it's open, it's available. It's 14,000 square feet, which was right on point with what we needed. I didn't want too much space to fill. We certainly didn't want something we were going to outgrow quickly. It's a historic place and such a great centrally located space for a young man to be. I mean, it's just such a great neighborhood in terms of the other businesses surrounding it. And so we were really lucky to stumble into this. And then, we got into an engagement with, the owners of the property. And I think we've got a great deal. And now Whiting Turner is a contractor. I mean, the vision's coming into place. A year from now, our summer program will open and these young men will have a place that is theirs. And they'll truly feel proud that it is the Next One Up home. And it's never been that way.
So you started Next One Up while keep coaching lacrosse and teaching history at Cristo Rey Jesuit High School. Can you tell us about that experience and the impact of Cristo Rey on Next One Up?
Sure. Yeah. At the time, I was living in Denver, Colorado, and for a few years, my wife was took a job in the area, and then she was transferred back. And I said, you know what, I'm going back to Baltimore to teach. I'm going to dive into education in the city. That's what matters the most to me. And for me was to be at a brand new startup school in 2009. I looked around, and the first thing, of course, was like, hey, there's no lacrosse program here. And so that was my first step is I'm going to get some sticks and some equipment. We're going to go over to Patterson Park, and I'm going to teach some guys how to play lacrosse. And that got the ball rolling for me to be in an environment of young people that had a thirst to learn, but also were navigating the challenges any other young person does in the city. A lack of resources in terms of youth sports, club programs. As we all see, it's kind of feast or famine. If you're a city resident and a city kid, there's less opportunity in terms of sports and engagement oftentimes. And I thought maybe I can create that opportunity. So I started running some clinics and inviting kids to come through, and that was really important to me to see what would happen. And then all of a sudden, I just, 5 years of teaching there, in 2013, 2014, I realized, look, I've got to make a choice. I'm either teaching full time or I'm going to grow this program. But as our young men in the program started to go off to college, I just realized that's where my passion lied. I wanted to really start a nonprofit, not a part-time nonprofit. And I knew that that's the attention that it needed. So I took a huge risk. I took it on a second job just in the construction world just to make a little extra money. And it took me, 2009, Edwin, I think I received my first paycheck for Next One Up in probably 2016. So 7 years of just doing it because I valued the work, and it certainly wasn't money chasing for me. I'm still on that path. I have 3 kids, but at this point, it's a very sustainable and growing nonprofit. And I took a huge risk. I had three little kids at the time, ages 4, 3, and 1. My wife didn't think I was crazy. She said, "You're leaving, stable position teaching. You want to start this and build your vision." She was behind me the whole way. And now to this day, I was a one-man show 6 years ago, and now we have a staff of 10, and it's growing.
And tell us about how many alumni have graduated from the program.
There's roughly 30 guys. And when we say that, like identifying alumni, some of our guys graduate high school, might join the military, they might go into a trade, they might go off to college. But what we do see once young men hit that age of 18, 19, 20, they transition into this alumni program member where we support them on job interviews, job readiness, connecting them to opportunities, or really basically if a kid goes off to college and realizes it's not for them, we help them transition out of that. So, for us, that 30 plus alumni group has been really important because the give back we see with them, the mission of Next One Up and pulling the next one up. My model and vision for this was that these young men would grow to be mentors and leaders and help us develop these next future generations. And what's beautiful to see is with our alumni, that's happening right now.
And can you share some of the mentees' stories? I was reading the story about Isaiah Brown. Or if there's anyone else you'd like to?
Yeah, Isaiah is a great one. There's a ton of great stories to tell with all of our guys, but Isaiah came to us as a 7th grader through a mentor of his, sent me an email, and we were just an up and coming nonprofit. I was still operating at Patterson Park, and he said, "Hey, I'm a mentor and a youth football coach of a young kid who doesn't have a lot of resources at home. He's an East Baltimore kid, lives in the Monument Street area, and." He'd love to join the program. And so Isaiah came in very humble and quiet. And, after a year or two, I looked around, I was like, this guy never misses. He comes every weekend. He comes to everything that we do. He very quietly goes through his process. His grades are always good. I could tell he had a really bright future. And, fast forward now, Isaiah goes off to Archbishop Curley High School. He graduates and goes to University of Maryland, Eastern Shore. He always had a dream and a vision of being a pilot. And this was a kid who had never been on an airplane. And so it was just amazing that, we talked about the Air Force Academy. We talked about Air Force ROTC. And that's what we do at Next One Up is try to open doors and to engage deeply and say, hey, how can we help you get to this? Not just, cheer for his dream. We want to help it become a reality. So the basic thing that we did was help pay for his flight school at UMES. And we knew that financial barriers are what challenged these kids the most. And during COVID, Isaiah, some of the pictures were amazing that he sent us. He's now can fly on his own. He has an internship with Alaska Airlines. And I should have this right, but I'm guessing he's about 20 years old now. And he's going to be a full-fledged pilot. And Alaska Airlines is now partnered with UMES. So I'm pretty sure he'll be flying some of us on some vacations pretty soon. And this is a kid from East Baltimore, as I said, hadn't been on a plane as a young kid, but he had this vision of this is what I want to do. And I think this is who we see with our guys, and guys like Darius Sanders, who's a social worker and youth counselor at Kennedy Krieger. This is what he wanted to do. We supported him in his path, but we just bring in kids to this program. One, it's very rigorous. You have to be there. If you don't show up, we don't invite you back. So we're finding the toughest kids and the most diligent kids. So the stories keep growing. And this past spring, we had a young man who was born at a refugee camp in West Africa and found his way to East Baltimore and ended up at a really struggling charter school. When we met him as a ninth grader, I said, hey, I think we're going to try to work with you to transition to a stronger school. You're a better student than you realize. He also was a very good athlete. Fast forward to this spring, he graduated from the University of Notre Dame with honors in 3 years. Now he's at Rice University in Texas getting his MBA. And all the while played football at the University of Notre Dame, and now we'll play football at Rice University. We're beyond proud of these guys, but there's dozens of stories like this where if you ask any of them, they'll just say, if you say, what did Next One Up do for you? They'll just say, these guys, I say myself, there's a ton of us. We just stand behind them. And sometimes we're in front of them. I always say from a football analogy, we are lead blockers for 150 plus kids.
And so what is the relationship between Next One Up and Gilman?
With Gilman, we found a great school, and that was, and our kids don't go there, not to the sense that our guys often matriculate to public schools or schools in their neighborhood. It wasn't that we had a ton of kids to go through Gilman. I just remember my meeting with Henry Smythe, their headmaster, and I said, look, we're a humble program that over the years has been kicked around to a bunch of facilities. We've outgrown all of them. What does your school look like on Sundays? Would you take us in? And I really had to pitch it to them because, again, we had a couple of Gilman board members, but it was centrally located. The kids could get on and off the bus safely, and it was easy for most guys to get home from there. And they've been great to us. We've been there now several years, and we have a 5-week summer program going on at Gilman. So we just found a school with open arms and open doors that allowed our program to flourish to the point where, as I told Sean Furlong, their CFO, a while back, he was so excited. I said, hey, Sean, thanks for everything. We're going to stick with you guys a little bit, but I have some good news. We're not going to be your roommate anymore for that much longer. And, they really cheered for us. And the upside too is we'll be right down the street. So we owe them a lot in buying us time to figure out what our future was in real estate.
So the Ravens and T. Rowe Price are samples of partners for Next One Up. Can you tell us about their role and any other partners that you want to highlight?
Yeah, I would also say, Edwin, you picked two really important groups to us because when you look at T. Rowe as a financial institution, they don't have to do what they're doing. They're so connected to the Baltimore community. And when you look at John Brothers and the folks that we've dealt with at T. Rowe, it's just been unbelievable. Stacey Van Horn and others who not only do they provide funding to what we do, but they provide a ton of professional development. So it's just beyond, it's a great model for other companies and financial institutions to see what engagement looks like. So T. Rowe has been such a great long-term partner of ours. And then the Ravens, their view, and with Stephen and Renee Bishotti and Heather Darney at their foundation, they're very plugged into Baltimore. And I say that just like T. Rowe, they as an NFL franchise, they don't have to be doing what they're doing at such a deep level. And we've been a partner of theirs for years, and they've supported us for a number of years on a ton of different initiatives. So I just think both of those companies are very unique and very special to Baltimore City because, again, as I keep saying, these companies do not have to choose to do this, but they do. They have a passion for the city and for youth. So those two partners have been just beyond solid for us.
And so are there plans for launching a program for women?
For us, I always say, with our program and serving young men, I started this program knowing, the demographic of young men in Baltimore City were the most challenged. When asked the question on, serving women, I always say we have 120 plus single moms in our program that know where their sons are every day. And for us, that is our women's program.
Okay, so what's next up for next one up? How are you scaling? You've obviously got your new facility. I had an interesting conversation yesterday with a woman whose son was a lacrosse player and said, it's too bad that lacrosse, there are not more lacrosse, that there aren't more people playing lacrosse in Baltimore, rather than football and baseball. So, yeah. So, what are your plans? You've obviously got your new space, but beyond that, what is your vision for next one up?
Well, some of the simple ones, Edwin, is certainly is serve more kids. We have a very strategic 5-year plan to grow the numbers that we serve. We currently have a wait list of 40 plus young men. We don't want to have that wait list much longer. So we want to serve more kids and scale up for sure. And then as we take a look at what the future looks like, it is just diving deeper into our career readiness. So the question that we're answering at work right now is, what does the most complete 18-year-old look like? What skills does he have as a student, as a potential worker in the workforce, and then just as a young leader? And so that's what we're pushing now, is almost simplifying what we deliver. We certainly support athletes, but we're not sports specific. We know that sports are a great way for young men to learn competition and accountability and attitude and all those things that matter to us. But the future to us looks bigger in terms of the numbers we serve, and more detailed and a lot more depth in terms of what we deliver programmatically in this new space. So we'll have a kitchen, we'll have a maker space where they'll be working with their hands. We do robotics, we do bicycle mechanics. We're working on growing our tech arm so that our guys, groups like Flywheel that we've worked with, and our guys are working there this summer. We want to develop a lot more into what does the future workforce look like, and to make sure that our guys are prepared for that workforce. And then the other piece in terms of our future is happening now that we're really excited about. I just returned home from a trip on Cape Cod. There's a beautiful island off of Woods Hole, near the Woods Hole Institute, where we took some middle schoolers to go to a bird sanctuary for 4 days to study the marine life and the birds. And it was an amazing opportunity for our guys. But what we've realized is we need more programs within Next One Up that get students out of Baltimore in the summer and engaged in new areas. Everything from getting on an airplane for the first time, or to being on an island alone, which we did a few weeks ago, which was unbelievable for these guys and experience. That was year one of us doing that. And that was spurred by one of our graduates who was deeply in love with science. And we looked around as a staff and said, we don't do enough for our young scientists. And now that student's at the University of Miami, and he helped me lead that program this summer. The other one initiative for us focuses on alumni. I'm talking to you right now from Denver. I'm here. We have a donor here who has supported a retreat that we're taking part in this week with 10 of our alumni who are all in their 20s and in the work world. Some have children, some own businesses. It's a great mix of our early Next One Up members. And we're doing a 5-day retreat in the mountains where the guys will, everything from hike and mountain bike, we're doing some horseback riding, but also every day has sessions on leadership, financial, for these guys, really financial literacy or financial management, understanding real estate, everything that you could imagine. A bunch of great guest speakers. We have someone from Obama's cabinet that's joining us up there, and several others. But this sort of get out of town and experience the rest of the country is becoming a huge part of our program. And also, as I speak to you now, our 70 plus middle school guys are at a college in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, for a week of college immersion. They're living on campus, operating on campus, and training. So St. Vincent College is our host there. So I think what we're seeing in terms of growth is it's not just about Baltimore. For us, is we want our guys to see and feel what the rest of the world looks like. So this is a big part of our program growth, is these retreats and these escapes for our guys. And they're coming back bigger, better, stronger, and have a bigger view of what they want to do with their lives.
And so, Matt, is there any part of the Matt Hanna or the Next One Up story that you haven't shared with us that you'd like to share with us?
I think if anything, it's the team. I think there was maybe a Matt Hanna show in the early days and the first 6-7 years where it was a really heavy lift to get this thing together. I always knew it was impacting youth long term. I'll be happy when these young men really prove and develop generational change, where their kids aren't going to need access to this program, or their kids are going to go to whatever school they choose. The stability of our oldest guys gets me the most excited. But I really think what I can say excites me the most is the team. It's a we project now. My partner, Shel Simon, who's our deputy CEO, is a West Baltimore native and still living there now. And his view of where we're going as well. We couldn't be in better hands. So now with a team of 10, I feel like the future is really bright for Next One Up. And this facility, when it opens next year, I really think will truly be the model of what a youth engagement facility should and could be.
So, Matt, I enjoyed our interview a couple years ago, and I'm glad to hear the incredible progress that you're making. And I wish you the best of luck going forward. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Edwin. I really appreciate it.